She came to the store for Christmas cheer and left humiliated by the manager's bias. What he didn't know, she was the CEO of the company, and her return changes everything. This story will leave you speechless. The holiday spirit was alive and buzzing in the sprawling aisles of Greystone Mall's flagship store. Strings of golden fairy lights glimmered above the aisles, casting a warm glow on the shelves packed with shimmering ornaments, velvet stockings, and towering artificial Christmas trees. Families bustled about, pushing carts filled with gifts, while holiday classics like Jingle Bell Rock played softly over the speakers. Yet amidst the laughter and joy, there were subtle undercurrents of impatience and quiet judgment, unspoken but lingering like a shadow in the festive glow. Angela Carter stepped into the store, shaking off the chill of the December evening. Her dark curls were tucked neatly beneath a warm beanie, and she wore a long, simple coat over casual jeans and boots. Angela exuded an understated elegance, the kind that didn't demand attention but left an impression nonetheless. She walked slowly, taking in the holiday displays with a quiet smile, her fingers brushing lightly against the soft bristles of a wreath as she passed. For Angela, this trip was meant to be a brief escape, a chance to relive the childhood magic of Christmas while finding the perfect finishing touches for her home. As the CEO of a prominent company, she rarely had time to indulge in simple pleasures like this, but tonight, she had allowed herself a moment of normalcy. She moved through the aisles thoughtfully, picking up an ornate golden crimson ornament shaped like a star and inspecting it with quiet appreciation. Not far from her, Mr. Charles Reed stood by the customer service desk, his sharp eyes scanning the crowd. Reed, the store manager, was a man who prided himself on maintaining order and meeting quotas. His graying hair was slicked back neatly, and his tailored suit gave him an air of authority. On the surface, he was the picture of professionalism, but his demeanor often betrayed a colder, more judgmental nature. His gaze fell on Angela, lingering longer than necessary. She was alone, her shopping basket still empty except for the single ornament she now held. Something in Reed's expression shifted, subtle but telling. He straightened his tie and muttered something to a passing employee, his eyes narrowing slightly as he continued to watch her. Angela, unaware of his scrutiny, moved on to a display of sparkling garlands, oblivious to the undercurrent of bias brewing nearby. The contrast between Angela's quiet confidence and Reed's watchful suspicion set the stage for what would become an unforgettable evening. Despite the warmth and joy of the season, the cracks in the festive facade were beginning to show. Reed's assumptions about Angela, fueled by his own prejudices, would soon lead to a confrontation that would ripple far beyond the brightly lit aisles of the store. As Angela reached for another decoration, a delicate crystal angel, she paused, catching the faintest sense that someone was watching her. Dismissing the thought, she turned her attention back to the display, her focus solely on the joy these small, beautiful pieces might bring to her holiday. Little did she know that tonight's events would bring an entirely different kind of revelation, one that would challenge Reed's biases and reveal the strength and grace she carried within. Angela's basket had begun to fill with carefully chosen items, a set of shimmering gold ornaments, a string of soft white lights, and a crystal tree topper that caught the light like falling snow. She was lost in thought, admiring the fine details of a garland adorned with miniature bells, when a shadow loomed over her. "Excuse me, ma'am," came the clipped voice of Mr. Charles Reed. Angela turned, her calm gaze meeting the store manager's calculating eyes. There was no warmth in his expression, only a rigid politeness that felt more like a warning. "Yes," Angela replied, her tone neutral but polite. Reed's gaze flicked to her basket, his lips pressing into a thin line. "That's quite a selection you've got there," he said, his voice edged with skepticism. "Those are from our premium collection. They're not exactly budget-friendly." Angela blinked, caught off guard by the insinuation. "They're beautiful," she said simply, returning her attention to the garland. Reed didn't move. Instead, he stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough to sound conspiratorial. "You know, we also have some lovely options in the clearance section," he said. "Perhaps you'd find something more appropriate over there." A subtle hush fell around them as nearby customers slowed their browsing, their ears perking up at the interaction. Angela's hands stilled, the bells on the garland chiming softly, as she set it back on the shelf. "I think these will do," she said, her voice steady but firmer now. Reed's expression hardened. He folded his arms, his posture towering over hers as he leaned in slightly. "I just want to make sure there are no misunderstandings at checkout," he said, the thinly veiled accusation hanging in the air like a bad odor. Angela felt a knot tighten in her stomach, but she refused to let it show. Years of navigating spaces where she was underestimated or judged had taught her the value of composure. She straightened her spine, meeting Reed's stare with quiet dignity. "I assure you, there won't be," she said. But Reed wasn't done. He glanced around as though inviting others to join his judgment, then added in a louder voice, "It's just that we've had incidents before. People biting off more than they can chew." A few customers turned their heads now, their curiosity mingled with discomfort. Angela caught their glances, some pitying, others quickly looking away. No one stepped forward. Reed's words stung, but Angela kept her voice even. "I'd like to finish my shopping now, if you don't mind." "Of course," he said, stepping back with a mock smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just trying to help." Angela moved through the aisles, but the joy she'd felt earlier was gone, replaced by a weight she couldn't shake. Each step felt slower, heavier, as Reed's words echoed in her mind. At the checkout counter, Angela placed her items on the conveyor belt, her movements measured. She ignored the whispers from the line behind her, focused only on completing the transaction and leaving. But as she reached into her purse, Reed reappeared, his presence looming yet again. Whether for a long walk in the forest or Milo's mind, she couldn't tell. "Everything all right here?" he asked the cashier, Maria Lopez, who looked up nervously. Angela's jaw tightened. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her voice clipped but calm. Reed smirked. "Just making sure everything's in order." Maria fumbled slightly with the scanner, her hands trembling as she swiped the items. She darted a glance at Angela, then at Reed, and back again, her discomfort evident. Angela's patience finally wore thin. "I don't think it's appropriate for you to keep interrupting my transaction," she said, her voice firm but composed. Reed's smile faltered, replaced by a glint of irritation. "I'm only doing my job, ma'am," he said. "We have policies to follow." Angela met his gaze evenly. "I've followed all your policies. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to finish in peace." Reed hesitated, his authority challenged. He lingered for a moment before stepping back, his expression darkening as he disappeared into the aisles. Angela left the store moments later, the cool evening air hitting her cheeks as she stepped outside. The hum of holiday cheer around the mall felt distant, muffled by the heaviness in her chest. She paused near the entrance, staring at the decorations she'd chosen, now packed neatly into shopping bags. For a moment, she considered going back inside, confronting Reed, demanding accountability. But years of experience told her it wouldn't make a difference. Not here, not now. With a deep breath, she squared her shoulders and walked toward her car, refusing to let the encounter ruin her evening. Inside the store, Maria stood at her register staring at the empty checkout lane where Angela had been moments before. She bit her lip, replaying the interaction in her mind. She had seen it all. The subtle digs, the condescending tone, the way Reed's words had landed like sharp, unspoken accusations. Maria glanced toward the back of the store, where Reed was now speaking to another employee as though nothing had happened. Her stomach churned. "Why didn't I say something?" she thought. Maria turned back to her register, her hands shaking slightly as she organized receipts. She felt a gnawing sense of guilt, a weight in her chest that refused to lift. Deep down, she knew she had been complicit by staying silent, and it was a feeling she wouldn't soon forget. The corporate boardroom was a stark contrast to the festive decorations of the store. The sleek glass walls and polished oak table exuded an air of authority and precision. Mr. Charles Reed sat among the other store managers, flipping nervously through his notepad. He wasn't accustomed to being summoned to leadership meetings, especially during the chaotic holiday season. The agenda had been vague, an introduction from upper management and a discussion on store policies, but something about the tone of the email had set him on edge. The room quieted as the door opened and a senior executive entered, his tailored suit immaculate. "Good morning, everyone," he said, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "Thank you for joining us today. We are especially honored to have someone very important with us to discuss our vision for the future. Please welcome Angela Carter, the CEO of Carter Enterprises." Reed froze mid-page turn, his face blanching as Angela stepped into the room. Gone was the casual attire from the previous evening. Angela now wore a tailored navy blue suit that radiated confidence, her natural curls framing her face. She moved with the poise of someone who commanded respect without demanding it. Reed's grip on his pen tightened. His mind raced, replaying every word he'd said to her in the store. "That's impossible," he thought, his stomach sinking as he watched her take her place at the head of the table. "Good morning, everyone," Angela began, her voice steady and warm. Her gaze swept the room, her expression calm and professional. She didn't linger on Reed, but he could feel her presence like a spotlight, exposing every crack in his carefully constructed facade. Angela launched into her presentation, discussing the company's vision for creating inclusive, customer-centric environments. Her words were measured, filled with purpose but laced with subtle undertones that Reed couldn't ignore. "As we approach the end of the year, it's important to reflect on the values that define our company," Angela said. "Carter Enterprises has always stood for more than just profitability. We believe in fostering spaces where every individual feels valued, whether they're a customer, an employee, or a member of the community." Reed's throat felt dry. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, avoiding eye contact as Angela continued. "Inclusivity isn't just a policy, it's a practice," she said. "It's about how we treat each person who walks through our doors, regardless of their background, appearance, or circumstances. That's what makes us successful, not just during the holidays but every single day." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, but Reed felt like the walls were closing in. Angela hadn't mentioned him directly, yet every word felt like it was aimed squarely at him. After the meeting concluded, Angela lingered, speaking to a few executives before gathering her notes. Reed hesitated by the door, torn between slipping out unnoticed and facing her directly. Before he could decide, a voice called out, "Excuse me, Miss Carter?" It was Maria Lopez. She stood near the edge of the room, her hands clasped nervously in front of her. Angela turned, her expression softening. "Yes?" Angela said, her tone inviting but calm. Maria approached slowly, glancing briefly at Reed, who now lingered awkwardly near the door. I wanted to apologize," Maria began, her voice trembling slightly. "I saw what happened yesterday in the store and I should have said something. I should have done something." Angela regarded Maria thoughtfully, letting a moment of silence settle between them. Then she smiled, a small, genuine expression that put Maria at ease. "It's not always easy to speak up," Angela said gently, "especially when the stakes feel high. But acknowledging it now shows courage, and that's what matters." Maria's shoulders relaxed, but the guilt in her eyes remained. "I just feel like I let you down," she admitted. "I didn't mean to offend you." Angela shook her head. "You didn't let me down," she said. "But you have a voice, Maria. Don't be afraid to use it. Sometimes, being silent allows the wrong things to continue. Your voice can make a difference, not just for others, but for yourself too." Maria nodded, her resolve hardening. "Thank you, Miss Carter. I won't forget that." Angela reached out, placing a reassuring hand on Maria's shoulder. "You're part of this company's future. I hope you'll use this moment to grow and inspire others to do the same." As Maria stepped back, Reed found himself rooted to the spot, watching the interaction. His earlier confidence, the authority he had wielded so easily in the store, was gone, replaced by a hollow sense of vulnerability. Angela finally turned to him, her gaze steady but devoid of malice. "Mr. Reed," she said simply, acknowledging him with a slight nod. Reed's mouth opened as if to speak, but no words came out. Angela didn't linger. She gathered her things and left the room, leaving Reed to grapple with the weight of his actions, and the quiet, undeniable grace with which Angela had handled it all. When she went on her way, Reed followed her. The soft chime of the store's entrance bell rang as Angela Carter stepped inside, flanked by her younger brother James. The store looked much as it had during her last visit, brightly lit, with festive decorations and cheerful music filling the air. Yet for Angela, the atmosphere felt entirely different. She was no longer just a customer seeking holiday cheer. She was here with purpose. James walked beside her, his steady presence a source of quiet strength. "You sure about this?" he asked, his tone low but supportive. Angela glanced at him, her expression calm but resolute. "It's not just about me," she said. "It's about making sure no one else feels the way I did." They made their way through the aisles, heading toward the center of the store where the staff was gathered for their morning briefing. Mr. Reed stood at the front, clipboard in hand, speaking to the employees about sales targets. His voice carried the same authoritative tone Angela remembered from their last interaction, but as she approached, his words faltered. Reed's eyes widened as he recognized her. His grip on the clipboard tightened, and his posture stiffened, as though bracing for a storm. The employees exchanged curious glances, unsure of what was happening. "Good morning, everyone," Angela said, her voice clear and steady. She stood with her head high, her presence commanding attention without the need for force. Reed opened his mouth to speak, but Angela raised a hand, stopping him gently but firmly. "I'd like to address the team," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Reed hesitated, then stepped aside, his face pale. Angela turned to the staff, her gaze sweeping across the group. She saw Maria among them, standing near the back with a mix of nervousness and anticipation in her eyes. "First, let me say that I appreciate the work you all do," Angela began. "The holiday season is one of the busiest times of the year, and I know the pressure you're under. Your dedication doesn't go unnoticed." The employees exchanged uncertain looks, their initial confusion shifting to curiosity. "But I also want to address something more important," Angela continued. "Recently I visited this store as a customer. What I experienced was a reminder of how crucial it is to treat every person who walks through these doors with dignity and respect, regardless of who they are, where they come from, or what they look like." Reed shifted uncomfortably, his gaze darting between Angela and the staff. "Unfortunately," Angela said, her voice firm but devoid of anger, "I encountered behavior that fell far short of those standards. As the CEO of Carter Enterprises, I hold myself accountable for ensuring our stores reflect the values we stand for. And that means addressing not just this incident, but the broader practices that allowed it to happen." Reed finally spoke, his tone defensive. "Miss Carter, if I may," he began, forcing a tight smile. "Had I known who you were, we really—" Angela held up a hand, silencing him. "That's exactly the problem, Mr. Reed," she said, her tone calm but pointed. "No customer should have to be someone important to receive basic respect. Our values aren't reserved for executives or VIPs. They apply to everyone." Reed's face flushed, and he looked down at his clipboard, struggling for a response. Angela didn't let the silence linger. Turning back to the staff, she continued, "Moving forward, we will be implementing company-wide reforms to ensure this doesn't happen again. This includes mandatory training on bias, customer service, and inclusivity. It's not just about preventing incidents like this, it's about creating a culture where everyone feels welcome and valued." There was a murmur of approval among the employees. Maria, emboldened by Angela's presence, stepped forward. "Ujim." "Miss Carter," Maria said, her voice steady despite her nerves, "I want to thank you for speaking up. I saw what happened that day, and I regret not saying something sooner." Angela offered her a kind smile. "It's never too late to make a difference, Maria," she said. "What matters is that you're willing to learn and grow, and help others do the same." Angela then turned to Reed, her expression neutral but unwavering. "Accountability is an essential part of growth, Mr. Reed," she said. "I've decided that you will be reassigned to a non-managerial role effective immediately. This isn't a punishment, it's an opportunity for you to reflect on your actions and understand the values we expect from our leadership." Reed's mouth opened in protest, but he quickly closed it, realizing there was no room for argument. He gave a stiff nod, his gaze fixed on the floor. As the meeting concluded, Angela addressed the group one last time. "This isn't just about policies or procedures," she said. "It's about remembering that every interaction is an opportunity to make someone feel seen, heard, and respected. That's the spirit of this season, and the foundation of everything we stand for." The staff erupted into quiet applause, their expressions a mix of relief and admiration. Angela exchanged a glance with James, who gave her an approving nod. Later, as she and James walked out of the store, the tension from earlier seemed to lift. "You handled that with grace," James said, his voice filled with pride. Angela smiled, though her gaze remained thoughtful. "It wasn't about proving a point," she said. "It was about setting a standard and making sure it lasts." As they reached the car, Angela glanced back at the store, its windows glittering with holiday displays. For the first time since that fateful day, she felt a sense of peace. This wasn't just about one incident. It was about creating a ripple effect that would inspire change, not just in this store, but throughout the company and beyond. The transformation at Greystone Mall's flagship store was nothing short of remarkable. What had once been a space tinged with unspoken biases and tension was now a welcoming haven that radiated warmth and inclusivity. The holiday decorations seemed brighter, the staff more cheerful, and the customers at ease, as if the store itself had taken on a new spirit of generosity. Maria Lopez stood at the front of the store, wearing a crisp new badge that read "Shift Leader." She adjusted a display of ornaments, her hands steady and purposeful. Every so often she glanced around, offering a warm smile or assisting a customer with genuine enthusiasm. Maria's promotion had come after weeks of dedicated effort. Angela's words had stayed with her, inspiring her to find her voice and take initiative. When the opportunity arose to step into a leadership role, Maria didn't hesitate. She embraced the responsibility, determined to ensure that everyone who walked into the store felt seen and valued. "Great work with the new layout," said one of her co-workers, nodding at the neatly arranged shelves. Maria smiled, her confidence shining through. "Thanks. Let's make sure the entrance display is restocked before the evening rush." Her voice carried a newfound authority, not overbearing, but steady and inspiring. Maria's transformation mirrored the broader changes sweeping through the store, where mandatory inclusivity training sessions and team-building activities had created a stronger sense of camaraderie. Meanwhile, Angela watched these developments from a distance, her presence subtle but impactful. She had made a point to visit the store periodically, offering quiet guidance and encouragement to the staff. On one such visit, she noticed Maria mentoring a newer employee, her tone patient and supportive. Angela's lips curved into a small smile. This was exactly what she had hoped to see, a ripple effect of change, carried forward by those willing to embrace the values she had emphasized. Later that evening, Angela sat by the window of her home, a steaming cup of tea in her hands. Snowflakes drifted lazily outside, dusting the rooftops and trees in a soft white blanket. James sat across from her, rummaging through a box of Christmas decorations. "Found it," James said, holding up a familiar ornament, a crystal angel that caught the light beautifully. Clayton trailed off behind James and spoke over his shoulder, as though their conversation was important. Angela's smile widened as she took the ornament from him. "I can't believe you kept this all these years," she said, carefully hanging it on the tree. She lowered herself down the tree and laid head down on it. James shrugged, a playful grin on his face. "Mom loved it. Said it reminded her of you, graceful but tough as nails." Angela laughed softly, the sound warm and genuine. She had a way with words. The siblings worked in comfortable silence, arranging garlands and hanging baubles. The glow of the tree lights filled the room, casting a gentle ambiance that felt both nostalgic and hopeful. As they decorated, Angela's mind wandered back to the incident at the store. The humiliation she had felt that day still lingered in the corners of her memory, but it no longer held the same weight. Instead, it had become a catalyst, a moment that had forced reflection, action, and ultimately, transformation. "I never told you," Angela began, her voice thoughtful, "but that day at the store, it reminded me of when we were kids." James looked up from the tangle of lights in his hands, his brow furrowed. "How so?" Angela gestured toward the tree. "Remember how Mom always said we had to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard? That it's not just about fixing the moment. It's about making sure it doesn't happen again." James nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "She was right. You've always been good at that, Angela." Angela leaned back, her gaze softening. "I don't know about that," she said, "but I do know that what happened wasn't just about me. It was about everyone who walks into that store, or any space, and feels like they don't belong. That's what had to change." Over the following weeks, Angela had seen those changes take root. The store's staff meetings now began with discussions about empathy and inclusivity. Feedback from customers highlighted a noticeable shift in the store's atmosphere, and even former critics of the new policies admitted the results were undeniable. Mr. Reed, though no longer in a managerial role, had also shown signs of change. Angela's decision to hold him accountable without outright dismissal had given him a chance to reflect. While he still carried his clipboard and managed inventory, his interactions with the staff were less curt, his tone less sharp. Whether out of guilt or genuine growth, he was trying to keep a small but significant step forward. Back in Angela's living room, James placed the final ornament on the tree and stepped back to admire their handiwork. The tree sparkled with lights and memories, a testament to resilience and family. "Looks good," James said, nodding in approval. Angela joined him, her gaze lingering on the crystal angel. "It's more than just good," she said. "It's a reminder that even when things feel broken, there's always a way to rebuild." James glanced at her, his expression thoughtful. "You mean the store?" Angela shrugged lightly. "The store, the people, us, everything." They shared a quiet moment, the warmth of the room contrasting with the chill outside. For Angela, the tree wasn't just a symbol of Christmas. It was a reflection of the journey she had taken, from humiliation to empowerment, from injustice to transformation. The experience had reaffirmed her belief in the power of action and the importance of grace. As the snow continued to fall, Angela found herself at peace. The store had changed, lives had been impacted, and seeds of growth had been planted. But more importantly, she had stayed true to herself, and in doing so, she had inspired others to do the same. The room filled with the soft strains of a Christmas carol, and Angela closed her eyes briefly, letting the music wash over her. This was what the season was truly about. Not the decorations or the gifts, but the love, resilience, and hope that carried them forward. The transformation at Greystone Mall's flagship store was more than a surface change. It was a reflection of the values Angela Carter had fought to uphold. The holiday rush continued as customers streamed in and out, but there was a new energy in the air. Employees moved with purpose and warmth, greeting everyone with genuine smiles. The inclusivity training sessions Angela had implemented had not only reshaped attitudes, but also strengthened the bond among the staff. Maria Lopez, now a confident shift leader, stood by the customer service desk, her eyes scanning the store. She watched as a new employee helped an elderly customer choose ornaments, patiently explaining the differences in the styles. Maria's lips curved into a proud smile. Moments like these reminded her why she had stepped into this role. "Maria," a co-worker called, interrupting her thoughts. "Could you check on aisle 3? I think we need a restock." "On it," Maria replied, her tone brisk yet kind. She passed by a group of employees arranging a holiday display, offering them encouragement as she went. Her leadership was a reflection of Angela's influence, a quiet strength rooted in empathy and purpose. Angela visited the store discreetly one last time before Christmas. She walked the aisles, her sharp eye catching every subtle improvement, the way customers interacted comfortably with staff, the diverse team working seamlessly together, and the overall sense of welcome that filled the space. At the back of the store, she spotted Maria, helping a young employee arrange a display of ornaments. Angela paused, observing as Maria patiently explained the importance of creating an inviting presentation. "That looks beautiful," Angela said, stepping forward. Demi Hayek said something comparable. Maria turned, her face lighting up at the sight of Angela. "Mr. Carter!" she exclaimed. Angela gestured toward the display. "You've done an excellent job," she said. "Not just here, but with everything." "It's impossible," said Eddie. "It really is." Maria blushed slightly, but her pride was evident. "Thank you. I couldn't have done it without your guidance." Angela smiled. "You could, and you did. You just needed the opportunity to believe in yourself." The two women shared a moment of understanding before Angela excused herself. As she walked out of the store, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This wasn't just a victory for her. It was a victory for everyone who deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. That evening, Angela sat in her living room, the warm glow of the Christmas tree casting soft shadows across the walls. The decorations she had chosen carefully adorned the branches, delicate ornaments, shimmering lights, and the crystal angel she had bought with James. Each piece told a story, a reminder of resilience, love, and hope. As she adjusted one of the ornaments, Angela took a step back, admiring the tree. Her mind wandered to the events of the past few weeks, the confrontation at the store, the courage it had taken to speak up, and the lasting changes that had followed. James entered the room, holding 2 mugs of hot cocoa. "Thought you could use one," he said, handing her a mug. Angela accepted it with a grateful smile. "Perfect timing," she said, taking a sip. They sat together on the couch, the soft strains of a Christmas carol playing in the background. James glanced at the tree, his expression thoughtful. "You've made a real difference, you know," he said. "Not just at the store, but with everyone who worked there. Maria, the staff, even Reed." Angela chuckled softly. "It wasn't about making a point," she said. "It was about setting an example. If we want to see change, we have to be willing to lead it." James nodded, his respect for his sister clear. "Mom would be proud," he said. Scott pulled out his phone and called her. Angela's gaze lingered on the crystal angel at the top of the tree, its facets catching the light beautifully. "I hope so," she said, quietly. As the snow fell softly outside, Angela felt a deep sense of peace. The world wasn't perfect, but small steps could lead to big changes. For her, this Christmas wasn't just about the decorations or the festivities. It was about the power of kindness, the courage to stand against injustice, and the hope that every action, no matter how small, could inspire a better future. And in that moment, as she sipped her cocoa and admired the tree, she knew her actions had made a lasting impact, not just on the store, but on everyone who had been touched by the story. The story of Angela Carter and her stand against prejudice is a powerful reminder that dignity and kindness can transform even the most challenging situations. Her actions inspired lasting change, proving that even in moments of bias, courage and grace can pave the way for a better future. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What message from this story resonated with you the most? Share your impressions in the comments. And if this story moved you, please leave a like.